welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure. If you don't say we have some more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call the police station, before they even leave, they take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle, the ASU strike.
Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a life. The president never gave me any deadline.
Hello and welcome everyone to Global Morning. It's a delight as always to know that you're joining us here on the program. This of course is Global Television with Life here in Abuja, the capital of Nigeria. I'm Uyi Agmofugbe and my colleague is also here on the program today.
A beautiful morning, dear viewers, and many thanks for tuning in and joining us on the morning show. What a great way to start your day, and look into the fact that we'll bring you to speed about the development in the country, the updates, and the happenings around the country as well. We'll, of course, not forget the fact that just yesterday, the family of the late Edwin Clark confirmed the demise of a statesman and a Pandev leader, who of course has been a leader from the Niger Delta and of course a statesman in the country, which many have continued to describe him as a role model for a democracy, a man who had stood firm in agitating for the democratic movements in Nigeria. And of course, we still pay tributes to that man, and of course asking that his soul continue to rise in peace. And back to the development, the federal government, Nigeria Bureau of Statistics, have actually been out with a new update regards to inflation. So it gets to the point where it looks at the vision of the president to have a 15% inflation rate is becoming possible and realistic.
You see, we need to continue to interrogate the numbers, Adika. But let's just cycle right back to the issue of the late Dr. Edwin Clark, right? Well, when that news broke, some persons were very surprised because they thought his life had done a complete cycle because of the influence he had on not just politics, but the redefinition, as it were, of the South-South, the Niger Delta in particular, especially with regards to the exploration of oil in that region of the country and all of that. I mean, they say his life evolved in many ways. Journalist, lawyer, of course, social crusader, and what have you. He left his mark in the sense of time, they say. So question is, who takes on the baton from where he left off is what we'll have to provide answers to now and always. Now, having said that, we'll come to the issue of numbers. You know, as they will say in data science, you have to crunch the numbers. So what were we doing before now? We're doing something in the order of 34% for inflation. And then the president comes and says, well, we need to cut that down to 15, even though there wasn't a clear timeline as to how that will happen or what the strategy was that had been adopted. But today we hear that we've cut it down to, well, 24.48%. Well, that sounds extremely significant, even though we know the everyday Nigerian is going to be bothered and agitated about how that rubs off on their experience economically when they go to the market, when they want to buy ingredients, they want to buy groceries, they want to buy foodstuff. Does it rub off? Have prices of essential commodities, all right, being driven down all the way, even though the president and the federal government are busy driving down the numbers? We also have to realize that there has to be that, if you like, correlation between the numbers we are banding and what the realities are on the ground, especially when you go to market. But if we're able to achieve the president's ultimate target, which is 15% inflation rate, and then we see that actually cutting across people's real-time experiences, and then I'm sure the president will get 2 thumbs up.
I mean, whatever explanation we may have is the fact that many Nigerians are still watching to see how this can impact within the market space, owing to the fact that if many are going to purchase, can these statistics of over 24% be the situation in the market, not just what we have as the statistics as well. Critics are actually bothered about the number and how government came about with the number, asking for explanation and all of that. But even when government can justify the explanation, what really matters is how these can begin to reflect on the life of every Nigerian day to day, week to week, and of course in a year. It would be a good thing for inflation to be reduced drastically to about 15% as the president had pegged for the 2025 budget. But let's see how and when and how these can begin to affect the life of every Nigerian. This is what many has continued to pay our attention to.
Okay, well, inflation numbers, great as they are, but we keep an eye out and we will consistently follow and track and let you know how this is panning out going into the 2027 general election. Of course, we hope that inflation numbers don't become elements for driving the narrative, and then the NBS knows much better than anyone else that we cannot afford to give reasons for our, numbers, whether it's about inflation, it's about any sector, all right, to be doubted or to if you like, be double checked. Okay, but there are other issues coming up right now. One of the sticking points for us this morning will be the issue in Edo State. We understand that a certain panel set up by the Governor Okpebholo government to, as it were, look at the books and the operations of the local government chairman across all 18 local government councils who have now been suspended. And then, of course, by extension, the former governor, immediate past governor, Godwin Obaseki, has come up with his reports. In fact, he presented that report just a few days ago, and we are now being told, as alleged by those state governments, under the leadership of Governor Monday Okpebholo, that about 96 billion naira cannot be accounted for. And the former governor has been indicted in all of this. It's a grand indictment, some people would say, even though the governor has clearly stated that the FCC will be petitioned in this regard. So the question is the governor being investigated? And in any case, how did you come by this 96 billion naira that's being talked about? The governor didn't run the councils. So how do we, the former governor in this case, how did we marry him, so to speak, with this investigation report? So we're going to have a former commissioner in that state join us this morning to help throw light on some of these issues. Well, a former commissioner with former Governor Godwin Obaseki, member of the PDP as well. So those are some of the issues we'll be looking at this morning.
And of course, we'll also turn attention towards the petroleum sector, controversy surrounding Dangote Refinery and NNPC again about the substandard fuel or whatever you may describe towards what many Nigerians have continued to experience, all the use as well, owing to the fact that if Dangote now sells at a retail at over 945 naira and NNPC is still 965 naira, but many have argued that what we have from NNPC is substandard. What NNPC have reacted, and of course there are a lot of reactions following that. And of course we'll be having an expert from oil and gas sector this morning to give us a perspective to us about what is the sustainability of what we have, and how can we also begin to look at issues of the price war and seeing how this can reflect better for Nigerians to continue to afford, not just to afford as well, but to be able to buy what should be the real thing and the real product within the market. We'll also not forget the fact that the National Assembly are inviting INEC to come explain why they have not conducted by-elections in Nigeria, which may not be far from their litigations or the matters within the courtroom. INEC, of course, will be invited by the House of Representatives to make some answers available to Nigerians as to the vacancy from the Houses of Assembly to the National Assembly and what have you. That also underscores the fact that even when we begin to have all of these vacancies filled up, what happens to the matters, some matters in the court and all of those considerations, and which the House will be ready to also hear from the Independent National Electoral Commission. All of that will be what we'll be discussing at a broader perspective. And of course, not forgetting the fact that more to do and more to say about roads to 2027. On the paper this morning, we'll continue to have that interaction for you. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you Fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
A Global Morning aims to deliver newspaper reviews and latest news with experts on key global issues.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and international.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range of the latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest.
The president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
A Global Morning aims to deliver newspaper reviews and latest news with experts on key global issues.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and international.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range of the latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest.
The president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
turn to the big headlines from across our national dailies for you this morning. It turns out we're beginning with the blueprints, front page loaded with headlines for you. Big one here. It has a kicker that says positive economic outlook. Nigeria's inflation rate drops to 24.48% after CPI rebasing. Now that headline is accompanied by two riders. First here reads, we've not imported a single liter of PMS of 2025. NNPC Limited declares, says reported importation of over 200 million liters baseless. NNPCL there providing clarification about these issues. But let's raise things up a notch higher and look at other headlines for you right below the name masts of the blueprint. Top left it says 5 army officers, 20 soldiers face courts martial in Enugu. What's the reason for that? Well, you can read up details from page 13 of today's issue of the Blueprint newspaper. What more do we have here? Business Corner says Forbes, Dangote's wealth surges to $23.9 billion, now 86th richest. Globally, still stays Africa's richest man. And then there's a bit of a headline from sports. NFF steps down to in Global Television had brought you this story earlier. But let's look at the headline above the nameplate of the Blueprint newspaper. The kicker reads, Osun LG crisis, ex-council boss buried SSG APC scribe Tango. And then a picture of the late Edwin Clark right here says Clark's exits a sobering loss to Nigeria that's credited to President Bola Tinubu. All right, left corner of the paper, 789 ex-terrorists undergoing de-radicalization rehabilitation. That's according to the Chief of Defense Staff. And then the writer tells us over 120,000 surrender. And as we go further down on the front page of the Blueprint newspaper, Heat wave is your rider. NOA issues health advisory to Nigerians. Death toll in Benue, community attacks rises to 32. Yesterday, Queen Agaba, my colleague and I were here talking about this. The death toll at that time was said to be 19. Now, we hear that it has spiked to 32. Quite a sad incident right there. A protest against NDDC management ill-motivated. Who's saying that? Well, read up details for yourself on page 9 when you pick up a copy of the Blueprint newspaper this morning. And then at the foot of the paper itself, NAPTIP intercepts 13 Iraq-bound girls, rescues 11 others from Abuja hotel. That is some supposed trafficking ring getting busted right there. Okay, that's all the headlines from the Blueprint this morning. We flip right over to the Vanguard now, and Adika has those details for us.
Alright, at the front page of Vanguard newspaper, big story as a special report, high electricity costs cooking teaching hospitals to dead. Cost choking teaching hospitals to dead, rather. That's on page 14. We still have the frame and the picture of late elder statesman Edwin Clark, 1927 to 2025. His last words: "Don't give up on making Nigeria better." That is credited to the family. Writer says, as Tinubu, Obasanjo, Jonathan, Atiku, Akpabio, Obi, governors, orders, man. Bayelsa direct all flags to fly at ARV. Mass for 3 days. These you can find on page 5 in respect to departure of Let's Edwin Clark. We also have a CBN direct banks to publish dormant accounts. This you can find on page 19. Education suffers reduced allocations as NAS amends the past 2025 budget. Military should be barred from elections in Nigeria. Jonathan, that's the former President Goodluck Jonathan advising the military should be barred from elections in Nigeria. You can read that story on page 8 to have more insights in that. FG commissions NDLE Fez barracks in Yola after 35 years. Boko Haram, US to audit aid funds to Nigeria. NDDC, group warns organizers to desist from protest. That's on page 12. Also, our fears grow over Pope's health as Vatican Council's upcoming event. These are a few stories right there on the Vanguard. But last on the sports, we have Chile to watch Musa Kano Pillars. You can actually find those interesting stories right there on the Vanguard to catch you with the insights. Well, I'll turn attention now to the Punch newspaper for you this morning.
This is the point where my colleague Juma Manson would say, let's bring you some punchy
headlines. Headlines from the Punch.
All right, let's begin from the headlines above the nameplates. Top left, where you have a picture of Wale Edun, Minister of Finance, who doubles as coordinating Minister of the Economy. It says inflation drop. Experts demand lower interest rates. Well, let's see what the MPC, that's the Monetary Policy Committee of the CBN, would do in that regard at their next meeting. Okay, Dangote's wealth rises to $24 billion after refineries operations, right? Tinubu Obasanjo, others mourn as Adrian Clark dies at 97. Time will fail us to go into the times and life and times of this man, but here these replicated across all major dailies this morning. Okay, I just sent the nameplate to have a picture of the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio here. 54 trillion naira budget, National Assembly raises recurrent votes, cuts 500 billion from capital spending. Workers in 109 embassies grown over 6 months unpaid salaries. Ministry promises to clear arrears, ex-envoys kick. All right, what's more here? It says John Vance UK agency invests $40.5 million to expand Nigeria's cocoa industry. That's one as they say, sleeping giant that Nigeria has not really exploited the last couple of decades. Ukraine protest exclusion as US-Russia raised team to end war. Just to mention quickly on the global stage now, President Donald Trump has adopted a radically different approach to the Russia-Ukraine war as against what his predecessor, Joe Biden, had in place. A meeting was held yesterday. US, Russia were there in Saudi Arabia, Riyadh particularly, but Ukraine, one of the parties in this conflict, was not invited, and Ukrainian President Zelensky had said very clearly that his country will not be part of any deal that he is not invited to participate in. And people are saying, well, it doesn't matter whether you're invited. The important thing is that this war ends, and it ends real quick. There are those who also argue to say that Trump is going forward matching words with action, because he has said once I get into office, this war will end as quickly as possible.
A lot have been said, regards to the approach, because the approach of Trump is quite different from Biden. The world leaders as well have also been watching to know how these the approaches can get to work, how it will deploy in resolving the crisis within the Middle East. But in the more approach, many have continued to look at Donald Trump already taking sides, to that effect.
In the interest of Russia,
in the interest of Russia as well. So let's just get to see how the event gets to unfold as well, to knowing how this approach can work better in resolving the peace within the Middle East.
Right, 3 more headlines to go on the Punch newspaper. Let's run through them quickly for you, everyone. Bottom left, Lagos Assembly says Tinubu's wife not involved in crisis. First of all, the president was mentioned in this crisis. Now, a few persons are trying to defend the First Lady as not being part of the crisis. Right, here it says immigration arrests 40 illegal migrants in Oyo. Ocean crisis. Police go after killers. LG poll holds Saturday. It's been a fight, clash of titans in the state. But those are the headlines we've got for you from the Punch newspaper this morning. Let's move over to The Nation now.
And our few story, right on the front page of The Nation. We also have CBN asks banks chiefs with toxic loans. Later from the PENCOM, that's the National Pension Commission, giving some remarks. Historic relief. President Tinubu wipes out long outstanding pension backlog that's been signed by the management in respect to long outstanding pension. Also have anxiety in Osun as police confirm 6 deaths in violence with $23.9 billion assets. Dangote is at a 6 world record. That's a confirmation from the statistics confirming Dangote has the 86th world's richest. Right there you can find that story. A tribute to reign for Edwin Clark, 1928 to 2025 as well. And these are just a few stories we have on the front page of The Nation. Let's quickly turn to the Nigerian News Direct.
All right, on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct, we'll begin with this star headline for you. The kicker here says, substandard fuel, Kyari flees allegations, vows to take legal action. And then we've got a rider with the headline, defense fuel importation as global industry practice. And then above the name asks, Sanwo-Olu commissions Abule Egba terminal. Dangote's wealth soars as Forbes rank him 86th richest man in the world. Benue Assembly moves to remove chief judge over electoral law directive. Tinubu, Obasanjo, Atiku, others mourn as Pandev icon. Edwin Clark dies at 97. A meter bypass. NERC empowers discos to disconnect illegal connections arbitrarily. We understand that there are now fines of different categories for those who get involved in what industry experts call energy theft. All right. So that will appear to be all we've got for you from the Nigerian News Direct. But then we are not done just yet as we flip over now to the Daily Trust.
All right, here the Daily Trust. Boko Haram. U.S. probes head to Nigeria. Writer says Ndume calls for investigation. Borno Herders wants NGOs sacked. That is a story right there regards to some allegations surrounding the USAID and other aids to Nigeria and the funding of terrorism in the country. A lot of investigations, of course, Senator Ndume is calling for investigation, and Borno Herders are now asking that some of the NGOs and non-governmental organizations within their region be all sacked. Well, that is still a reaction to that statement that came from the congressman of the United States. I also have again the message from PENCOM Historic Reliever. President Tinubu wipes out long outstanding pension backlog. These are just a few stories right on the front page of the Daily Trust. So I'm turning to the Daily Times for you this morning.
All right, let's take a look at that real quick. Just above the name master of the Daily Times, it says House urges INEC to conduct by-elections for vacant seats. And then we go further down a little, says NLC shuts down IBEDC over sack of 3,000 workers. Star story, Tinubu, Obi, Atiku, governors, others mourn as Clark dies at 97. NSA hands over 59 kidnapped victims to Kaduna government. That's some piece of good news there. At least they can now reunite with their loved ones. Kidnappers now to face death penalty in Edo. So finally that law has been passed. You can find those details on page 7 of today's issue of the Daily Times newspaper. EFCC arrests 15 suspected internet fraudsters in Abuja. And lastly, 2 killed as Hausa Fulani youths clash in Jigawa. All right, that does it for us on the front page of the Daily Times today. But let's take a look at a different paper, the Daily Independent.
All right, now the Daily Independent talks on fuel quality, just drama, bad marketing, antics. It says scary. That's a reaction towards the substandard fuel saga right there. And NNPC are still talking tough and saying that it's just a bad marketing antics, it's just drama. Well, we had earlier informed you that we'll be having that discussion later on the program this morning. NAS revises 2025 budget, reduces capital expenditure by over 500 billion naira. A big story right here on the Daily Independent for you this morning. Politicians will behave well when we reject bad behavior. That's credited to Goodluck Jonathan, former president of the country. Just one rider to that story. Fault deployment of military for elections. I mean, Jonathan is really arguing about deployment of the military towards our elections. Of course, many will continue to argue. And the military, be separated from the civilian. Can we have them concentrate, in the boundary issues and the war, and not to
security of our national
boundaries and all of that? Not them really having to escort politicians during elections. We see them working with politicians and getting them involved within matters of elections. I mean, on the flip side, one may also look at the fact that we have the police, the strength of the police, are they enough to really cater for the domestic security challenges that we've been having? Because sometimes we see this military deployment to be a form of assistance to the number of already that we have for the police.
We need to take this thing one layer at a time, really can. First of all, they say there's no smoke without fire. Which means it was a potpourri of events that got us where we are today. Ordinarily, we are not supposed to have to declare public holiday, so to speak, right? Just because we have election, especially when it's the general election cycle. Who says you can't come to work, host this program, at about midday, say lunchtime, you step out, cast a vote, and you come back to work like nothing happened? We can get there, but the question is, do we have the balls to pull off this kind of action? Are we sincere enough about the things we're doing? It's preposterous that in 2025 we're still discussing whether or not we should divorce, so to speak, the military from electoral process. Because ideally, the military should be allowed to focus on securing our territorial integrity. Yes, as it were, take care of issues around national security, defense the nation by all means and things like that. Of course, they are provided the required vital resources to do that. But what you find is, on election day, you're seeing soldiers on the road. In fact, it will appear soldiers are more visible than police, right? And it's appalling that you see the soldier men are armed, and you say, well, police are not supposed to carry arms on that day, and things like that. It's as if we are deliberately orchestrating a script. In fact, you are executing a script we are written to direct electoral process on a certain path, because this kind of arrangement favors a bunch of persons. But the question is, do we want to get it right? Do we want to follow best practice? Do we want to follow the lead of other nations who have gotten it right, where we don't have to say because there's an off-cycle election in Edo, Anambra, Imo, Bayelsa, Kogi, or Ondo, that you want to shut down the entire state? And the people traveling, for example, from different parts of the country are stuck because a particular state has a gubernatorial election.
I mean, just as former President Goodluck has said, politicians will behave well when we have good...
When we reject bad governance.
We reject bad governance, bad behavior as well. A work in progress. Some Democrats critics will say that we're still in a work in progress anyways. But for how long? Because that's always a question. For how long do we continue to work in the progress? Owing to the fact that, we've actually practiced this democracy for over more than 25 years, unbroken. Can we continue to have that interaction about, are we getting it right? Because a child or a young man or woman of 25 years probably knows his good. He knows his rights and wrongs as well. So can we begin to separate, not because Nigerians are still babies within the democracy, but Can we begin to do the right thing?
Stop being called nascent democracy.
And stop having that sentiment around. Well, let's just get to look at a few stories wrapping up on the Daily Independent. 35-year-old James Broker as FG commissioned first NDLEA barracks. That is on page 29, and kudos to Nigeria Drug Law Enforcement Agency. Reps probe INEC over delay in conducting by-elections. That you can find as well on page 7 for you. Nike introduces tougher measures to combat electricity theft. Tinubu, Ibori, Jonathan, Atiku, Northern Southern governors, Mount Clark. That's still on the page 6 of the Daily Independent. And after rebalancing, Nigeria's inflation drops to 24.48% from the previous 34.80%. Which way Nigeria? Well, many will continue to have opinions surrounding these statistics as well. I also have FG to facilitate single-digit loans for MSMEs that you can find on page 6 as well. These are just a few, of course, interesting headlines we have for you from the Daily Independent, as you can get the paper to catch up with more stories in it.
All right. Well, just to courtesy caveats quickly, that all of the headlines we bring to you from across national dailies here are such that Google Television has not made any editorial contribution to them. Of course, we don't have the latitude to influence how they are written or what message they pass. So read details for yourself and be properly guided and stay ahead of the news. We'll take another quick break. We're back shortly to chit-chat a little, and that will lead us to the Global AM News at top of the hour. Stay with us, everyone. one of the headlines we brought to you this morning from the Punch newspaper is one that talks about how that no less than 109 embassies grown over 6 months, unpaid salaries, and we're now being told that at least 450 of foreign service officers, those you call FSOs, have not received their salaries for between 5 and 6 months. But these issues, from what we have seen the last few years, are beyond salaries. The fact that you have not paid salaries is just one of the several manifestations, because people have complained about the state of our foreign offices across the world, whether it's in Europe, in Asia, in the Middle East, continental America, or even back at home on the continent of Africa is being the same story. So the question is, what exactly are we not getting right? Is it basically a problem from the Foreign Affairs Ministry that's supposed to, as it were, guide and provide leadership for these foreign embassies? Because this already is a demarcating for diplomatic relations. I mean, the impression it creates alone, for example, these are very concerning issues. We've seen and heard Nigerians, some of them even doing videos of how that Nigerian embassies in the countries where they live are not effective, whether it's passports you want to procure for renewal or fresh issuance, whether it's a piece of document that you need to support an application, that is always a challenge. So we're curious as to whether or not is the so-called and sadly so, the Nigerian factor, that's also playing out in this regard.
I mean, there's no point if Nigeria do not have the required funds to continue to send ambassadors deployed. Some of these personnel to all these countries will not have the funding, because we could recall 2023, the president will recall some of the ambassadors to these countries back home, and it's still being delayed over the appointment, because I think if we had ambassadors that were previously recalled or new appointment being made, these are the persons that would have tried to see how they could have intervened within the matters, to speak to within directly to government to see how this can be rectified. But in a way, it shows back to the foreign policy of the government. It speaks volumes about the diplomatic missions of Nigeria, how we are not just positioning ourselves, because these are the persons to represent the country at the respective countries. I mean, they are. So if they are not if their welfare is not prioritized, if appointment have not been made to have replacement from the persons that we recall, then it shows how lackadaisical approach we are giving towards our foreign mission. So it speaks well to the president to also pay attention towards that sector. If they are not working, if there is no need for us to have some of these persons deployed to other nations as our foreign ambassadors, there is no point of sending them home, because it's better to have the challenges here at home than to face the challenges, in another man's country. So it's just an approach. But I really feel with the 2025 appropriation, priorities will be given, and I feel funds may be available, to be able to address that matters. But it shouldn't be for over almost 6 months, unpaid salary, about their children's school fees, about their welfare, how they're feeding, and all of those things. Because it's just about the image of the country, wherever they are flying the flag of Nigeria, and they ought to also be paying attention to. And away from them, you just get back, you come back home, the issue of minimum wage. Look at the months we've been having this interaction about minimum wage. The implementation is slow. State government will tell you that we are trying to do audit, we are trying to audit account, to know the statistics of staff we have, and for how long, do we have to get the numbers of persons that are working within the state. So these are the problems. Non-implementation of the minimum wage is still a problem. You get to some universities, ASU are still threatening strikes over unpaid this, unpaid that. It just shows how, we pay attention to entitlement. So I just feel that it's not what it ought to be, because when one works, it ought to also, have, wherever you work, you ought to also deserve better treatment, aware of appreciation, because in other clans, the workers are prioritized, workers' welfare are really prioritized. So I feel it's a culture that we must pay attention in the country.
Foreign missions are very critical to how you relate to other countries. So if you say, for example, Nigeria does XYZ volume of trade with India, it simply means that our foreign missions in India must be catered to properly. yes, you talk about the welfare of these workers who are in foreign missions. They didn't go there on their own accord. They were redeployed in most cases to those places to work. So Nigeria must take advantage, must be responsible for that. But again, some relief seems to be coming now because there are those who believe, they are optimistic that with the 2025 appropriation, these issues will be addressed as quickly as possible. But that effort should not just be one-off. It should be sustained in such a way that we don't come back here and we're still talking about how foreign missions are not being taken care of. Those who work there are owed several months in backlog of salaries and arrears and what have you. And to domesticate this conversation for a minute just before it's time for the Global AM News, you just mentioned in passing the minimum wage issue. For the governors who particularly say they are auditing to be double sure what their staff strength is and all of that. We've seen governors do this time and again, and then you cycle back the next day and you tell Nigerians that, well, you just discovered 1,400 ghost workers. So all of that money you paid to do your auditing, where did it go to? Because we know of states, for example, that bring in consultants from private firms to audit their staff strength. So if you pay that much, which ordinarily should be an investment to be double sure what your staff strength is, how is it that a year or even months later you're telling us that you have discovered ghost workers? Governors have been discovering ghost workers across most of the states in this country since 1999. So is it like we are not competent enough, all right, or smart enough in terms of leadership to be able to run circles around this ghost worker phenomenon? Because a governor spends in most cases 8 years in office. Every other time they're complaining about ghost workers. He leaves office, another governor comes. He's complaining about ghost workers. You say you have cleaned out the whole civil service system, that you've taken out all the ghost workers.
How did the names go?
Who sneaks them back in and who has been held accountable? Head of the civil service in that state, for example, permanent secretaries across the different ministries, the directors across those ministries, they have assistant directors, they have supervisors, and what have you. Of course, at several points, these ministries are, they have commissioners appointed to head them. Amongst these people I've mentioned, who does the governor hold accountable, and where necessary, where important, where you have evidence, go ahead to even prosecute for, because this is a criminal act. It's like a needle passing through the eye of, a camel passing through the eye of a needle for you to get into the civil service payroll. So if we have people, even with the so-called automated system, the IPIs were created, you still find people in their thousands across different states, and even at the federal level, whose names are still there receiving salaries for free. You're wondering if we're actually telling ourselves the whole truth. But again, this is where we're taking a quick break, everyone. Coming right up at the top of the hour is our Global AM News for you. Right on the flip side, we'll have two big conversations. Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
A Global Morning aims to deliver newspaper reviews, latest news with experts on key global issues,
and at the same time keeping you well informed about important events, both national and internationals.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range of the latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest.
And the president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
Hello and welcome to AM News here on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I'm Deacon Michael. A reminder that Global Television is on DSTV channel 365 and free to air on Nicomsat. You can download the Global TV Nigeria app for Android and iOS devices to keep track of the broadcast. And our President Bola Tinubu has approved the allocation of billions of naira for the expansion of 12 river basin projects across Nigeria, intended to address hunger and improving food security and enhancing agricultural development nationwide. Musa Kwankwaso, Director of Finance at the Adija-Jarehad River Basin, made the announcement in Kano State, emphasizing President Tinubu's unwavering commitment to the development of the northern Nigeria through the agriculture. And now the House of Representatives has called on the Independent National Electoral Commission to conduct by-elections for vacant seats in the national and state houses of assembly. This comes as the Green Chamber mandated its Committee on Electoral Matters to investigate the matter and invite the leadership of the Independent National Electoral Commission to provide a detailed explanation of the reasons behind the delay and the steps taken to rectify the situation. The charge fixed February 26 for the public hearing of the tax reform bills following the passage for a second reading by both chambers of the National Assembly. In addition to hold the public hearing where input from the public will be collected was announced by Speaker Tajuddin Abbas on the Tuesday plenary. To this end, the House announced a 36-member special committee whose duty will be to coordinate the decision and bring in an expertise in tax administration to include the benefit of the tax reform proposal. And now the United States mission to Nigeria has announced an investigation into how past aid allocated to Nigeria and other countries has been utilized. This follows U.S. President Donald Trump's January 2025 decision to suspend all the foreign aid for 90 days, citing concerns about global destabilization and misalignment with American interests. The move responds to the growing calls for the comprehensive review of U.S. Agency for International Development Health Funds. On a sad note, President Tinubu has expressed sadness over the passing of the former Federal Commissioner for Information and leader of the Pan-Niger Delta Forum, Chief Edwin Clark. Tinubu's condolence message was contained in a statement issued by the Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga. Tinubu said he led an illustrious life marked by dedicated service at different times to the nation and its commitment as a Council of State and the Federal Cabinet member. The All Progressive Congress and People's Democratic Party have traded accusation over escalating violence in Osun State, which culminated in the killing of the former chairman of Irewole local government area, Aderemi Abbas, and 6 others. The crisis was reportedly triggered by an alleged contentious Court of Appeal ruling said to have ordered the reinstatement of APC elected local government chairmen and councillors. Osun State Governor Ademola Adeleke had raised an alarm on Sunday alleging a conspiracy led by the Minister of Marine and Blue Economy Yotola and some security agency heads to enforce the ruling. And now the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice Lateef Fahimi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, has banned the Nigeria Police Force from parading suspect. Our first spokesperson, Muyiwa Adejobi, said that the police would issue a statement on the ban at the appropriate time. Speaking of the matter, human rights lawyer Femi Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, said the practice of parading suspects was an illegal act. The Simon Ekpa, the United States of Biafra, has written to Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu seeking recognition. This was contained in the latest signed release on X on Monday by Ekpa's second-in-command, Dr. Ngozi Oruwabeze. The 3-page open later claim that the redeclaration of Biafra was done in Finland during a convention with over 50 million Biafrans voting for a referendum on November 29, 2024. Back to you, the National Assembly, as the House of Representatives has called on relevant federal government agencies to implement tough measures against the homicidal and the femicidal acts in Nigeria. The resolution of the House followed the adoption of a motion during plenary moved by the Rivers lawmaker Awaji Norbek and three others. Drawing support for the motion, Abiante noted that the right to life is a fundamental human right guaranteed by the Constitution, which, while the homicide cases, including the murder and manslaughter and other violent crimes leading to the termination of life, have been on the rise across the country, provoking public demand for justice. Now it was a moment of reflection and gratitude to God, as friends and well wishes from the Aguila in a local government area to commemorate the one-year memorial service of Elder Pius Uche. Our correspondent Felicity Ndai reports that the event also witnessed the foundation laying ceremony of Pius Uche. Felicity has a report.
As the saying goes, a life well spent brings happy memories. So it is true for a life well lived. That is why people from all walks of life have gathered here at the family compound of Elder Pius Ogaba Uche for the first year memorial service in his honor.
The event, organized by his son, who is the Commissioner Public Complaints Commission in Benue State, James Uche, marks the renewal of their trust in Christ and a ceremony to express their profound gratitude to God for his continued guidance and protection since the passing of their father. It is in accordance with the Holy Scriptures that it pays to serve God that the foundation stone laying ceremony of Pa Pius Uche Memorial Anglican Church, Apa Aguila, was led.
I am very happy that Elder Uche and the children in particular are going to lay this foundation to bring light to this community so that they will have the gospel and save their lives.
Speakers, including Senator Abamoru, in their tribute, eulogized the memories of the deceased.
The best that they can do for their father is to leave his legacy, which they are trying to do. For the people of Aguila, Pagila, it is said that to whom much is given, much is expected. And I think this spirit of oneness, this spirit of unity that the children of Pauche are bringing to Apagila should be emulated by the people of Aguila.
For the family, his constant commitment to peace, unity and truth will remain their guiding principle.
We are trying to build on our father's legacy. While he was alive, he was a God-loving man. He was a man that went extra mile to ensure that he preaches the gospel of Christ. And we felt that there's no better way to sustain his legacy than building on where he stopped.
My father loved God and he loves unity.
So he always encouraged us to read the Word of God. He always shared the Word of God. Above all, he was dedicated to the gospel.
Pa Pius Uche was blessed with 8 children and 18 grandchildren. From Apa Aguila in Ado local government area of Benue State, Felicity Ndere reporting for Global TV News.
And now the leadership of Labour Party says it has not zoned its 2027 presidential tickets to the southeast. The party's National Public Secretary, Mr. Obiora Ifo, said this in a statement issued in Abuja. It was reported that Ifo was reacting to a report making the rounds that the party had zoned its 2027 presidential ticket to the southeast. British Council Director of Global Network, Charlie Walker, and his team have visited the Third Fund to appreciate it for the privilege of partnership and cooperation enjoyed over the years. Charlie Walker, in a statement during the visit, said the idea of the partnership and cooperation is important to the British Council. Our correspondent Ramsey Enol completes the report.
British Council has enjoyed a mutually beneficial cooperation with the Tertiary Education Trust Fund over the years. Charlie Walker said one of the major assignments of the British Council is to deepen and strengthen relationship between the United Kingdom and countries in which they work around the world, emphasizing that the UK's strategic partnership with Nigeria is of tremendous significance.
today is to come to meet the Executive Secretary, Sir, and to extend our thanks for the partnership and collaboration that we have enjoyed with the Tech Fund over the years, and to emphasise to you all how important that is to the British Council. The British Council's mission across the world is to deepen and strengthen relationships between the United Kingdom and those countries in which we work around the world, and none is more important to us than the relationship with Nigeria. And our work together extends opportunities to young people in Nigeria to benefit from education, and we hope to deepen the relationship with their counterparts.
The country director, British Council Nigeria, Duncan McGowan, pointed at certain guidelines relevant to its operations and its partners.
On the implementation of the TNE guidelines, we have the Education World Forum, which takes place in London in May. So that's the UK government's wider education, annual education policy conference, and the invitation for that will be with you very, very soon. So my thanks again.
The Executive Secretary of TED Fund, Architect Sonny Ochono, pledged support for partnering institutions.
And that is that TED Fund will be in a position to support the partner institutions here to ensure that they will meet the requirements and also provide all the resources that are required for them to mount this program, to host these programs, or to go into the collaboration with the British partners as the first step in implementing the guidelines that we have adopted. We are aware of the multiple dimensions of the transnational education and the various ways that these will be implemented. But the assurance we will give, and this is supported by the ministry, but also the Honourable Minister, has been following up on some progress in this dimension. That TED Fund will be there and will provide the right set of funding to support those institutions. And we believe it's coming at the right time.
The visit by British Council has built confidence between both parties as they agree to continue nurture a lasting relationship. Ramsey Enoch Agbo reporting for Global TV News.
Now to Lagos matters. Speaker of the Lagos State House of Assembly, Mojisola Mirinda, is currently yesterday presided over the plenary at the Lagos State House of Assembly. As it held amid the invasion of officials of the Department of State Services who had earlier sealed the chamber and office of the Speaker. The DSS officials who were later cited inside the chamber were in a physical confrontation with the legislative workers at the exit door of the chamber. And now the Court of Appeal sitting in Ibadan has upheld the selection and installation of Oba Gandhi Anolaoye as a shown of Obamosho, overturning an earlier ruling that nullified his appointment. The living judgment, Justice Yagata Nimpa, who led the three-member panel, ruled in favor of Oba Olaoye on all the 10 grounds of appeal. Watching the live broadcast of AM News when AM News returns state action on business enabling reforms and ties its commissioners of finance. We have those details from the world of business as well as more stories coming from foreign segment and sports segment rather. Stay with us. And many thanks for staying with us here on AM News and Out to Business News. In its quest to enhance Nigeria's business environment through strategic reforms, the State Action on Business Enabling Reforms has organized the 2025 Sensitization Workshop for Commissioners of Finance across Nigeria. Organizers say the workshop seeks to bolster investment promotions among states. A correspondent Godwin Sunday has a report.
The State Action on Business Enabling Reforms event, organized by the Federal Ministry of Finance in collaboration with the Nigerian Governors Forum and the World Bank, brought together key stakeholders from various sectors with the aim of enhancing Nigerian business environment through strategic reforms. In welcoming participants, Dr. Mohammed, the National Program Coordinator of State Action on Business Enabling Reforms, highlighted the achievements of the program and emphasized the need for more collaboration among states.
We are considering the achievement that we have recorded during the period of implementation of our sectors, and based on that, the essence is we intend to look at the progress that we have made so far vis-a-vis the challenges we are confronting today, so that we move forward in the implementation of the program.
While declaring the event open, Lydia Shehu Jafia, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Finance, seized the opportunity to state the objectives of the workshop.
The commitment of the program is so gratifying that apart from 3 states, 33 states including FCT have signed up with SMEs, which is a subsidiary royal agreement. I think we deserve it.
Speaking exclusively with Global Television, Chairman Commissioners of Finance Forum, Akintunde Oyebode, spoke on the significance of the event in unlocking Nigerians' economic potentials and facilitating sustainable development.
It's a critical program to help improve the competitiveness of Nigeria. You know, economic activity happens in the states. So if the states individually and collectively improve their business environment, make themselves more competitive, that rising tide will lift all boats, and it makes Nigeria a lot more competitive as a country.
There is no doubt that the workshop will mark a pivotal step in mobilizing state-level actions to foster a more business-friendly climate nationwide. Godwin Sunday, reporting for Global Television News.
National Bureau of Statistics says the headline inflation rates fell by 10 to 32 percentage points, up to 24.48% in January 2025 from the previous 34.8% in December 2024 after rebasing the Consumer Price Index. In a statement addressing the CPI report for January, the National Bureau of Statistics says that the rate reflects an updated price reference period year of 2024 and a weight reference period of 2023. In other news, cocoa industry has received a significant boost with a $40.5 million in investment from the British International Investment, a UK's development finance institution. Now the investment aims to enhance cocoa production, increase global exports, and drive sustainability in Nigeria's agricultural sector. Nigeria's cocoa processing and export sector announced that the funding will help a subsidiary, El Pibon Cocoa Product, in Ilorology scale up production from the 13,000 metric tons to its full installed capacity of 30,000. The federal government must spend 2.36 trillion naira on the electricity subsidy for low-income consumers in 2025, a figure that comes amid plans to implement the cost-reflective tariff for electricity consumers. This came as a multi-year tariff order released by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission that showed that government incurred the 178.3 billion naira electricity subsidy in January despite the minimal clash backing. The Regulatory Commission said that the subsidy was calculated after a review of key tariff indices, which showed that the weighted average cost-reflective tariff dropped to about 116.75% per kilowatt from the 213.85 per kilowatt in December 2024. Now to Cross River State, as Governor Basio Chu says the Bakassi Deep Sea Port project will be funded without the state taking any loan facility. Also noted that the project, a flagship of his administration, though not comes to life by his government, will change the economic landscape of the state and that of the country at large. The governor disclosed this in Calabar, the state's capital. And now moving to the foreign scene, as the United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the United States and Russia have agreed on the 4 principles following talks that lasted more than 4 hours in Saudi Arabia, including appointing a high-level team to help negotiate and work through the end of the conflict in Ukraine. Ukraine's President Zelensky said his government knew nothing about the talks and will not participate. Officials say all 80 people on board a plane which crashed and overturned while landing in Toronto have survived. The Delta Airlines flights from the Minneapolis skid along the runway with one wing on fire, and it came to a halt outside Darwin as the firefighters put out the flames. The 18 people were injured, but only a small number are thought to be seriously hurt, and investigators are looking into what caused the crash. And overnight, air defenses shot down more than 3 out of 106 drones launched by Russia, the Ukraine Air Force says. They were shot down over several regions, including Kiev, where smoke could be seen rising above the city. A Monday evening, residents of Kiev were instructed to take over cover, but a major damage was reported in the Kiev. And now, as the talks between the United States and Russia officials continue in Saudi Arabia, Donald Trump's special envoy for Ukraine, General Keith Kellogg, is holding separate meetings in Europe. His first was in Brussels with European Council's President Antonio Costa and leader of the European Commission. And our von der Leyen says the discussion was important, adding that they want to partner with the U.S. to deliver a just and lasting peace for Ukraine. Now moving to sports, the Referee Development Committee of Nigeria Football Federation have suspended Wilfred Chawe from officiating Nigeria National League matches. A free suspension was contained in the statement released by the committee, saying the decision was taken due to Chawe's questionable calls during the match between Solution FC and Gasula Pabio FC played in Awka on Saturday, February 15, 2025. Glasgow Rangers defender Leon Balogun has reiterated his desire to return to the Super Eagles while opening up and missing out on the last Africa's Cup of Nations African tournament in Ivory Coast, where Nigeria finished second. Balogun's last appearance for the Super Eagles was in 2022 during the country's African qualifier against the Sao Tome and the Principe had a study in Morocco. He admitted that he had been left out of the team since then most times due to injuries, but delivers he was in a good position to make a return and as he continues to live up to expectation at Rangers. And that's our package here on AM News. A reminder that we are on DSTV channel 365 on StarTimes, channel 276 free to air, and NICAMSAT. Kindly follow us on our streaming platform using @Global TV NG. You can also download the Global TV Nigeria app for Android and iOS devices to keep track of our broadcasts. I'm Deacon Michael. At 8:30 we'll return to the programming of the Global Morning. Do stay with us. We'll be right back.
Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
Global Morning aims to deliver newspaper reviews, latest news with experts on key global issues.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and internationals.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range of the latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest.
The president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
We appreciate everyone for staying with us on Global Morning today. At the top of the program this morning, we did hint about developments coming out from the state, particularly in light of the suspended local government chairman. Of course, we also had been told a couple of days ago that a panel set out to look at the books and time in office, as brief as that may sound to some people, and then revert to the state governor on their findings, submitted their reports a few days earlier, and then we are told by some estimates that that panel has indicted not just these local government chairmen who have been on suspension for a while, but the immediate past governor of the state, Mr. Godwin Obaseki, of having, well, some say misappropriated, others would say taking 96 billion naira from the coffers of these 18 local government councils. Now, some persons I've spoken to off television say that it's a single story that is being sold by Edo State's government, because nobody really has heard the other side of the immediate past government. But ultimately, we also understand that this panel of inquiry is not a court of law, and as such, its reports is not definitive. Maybe that's the reason Governor Monday Okpebholo now says that he would petition the EFCC in this regard. How soon will that happen? What will be the implications? Well, I'm joined by someone who was pivotal in the government of immediate past Governor Godwin Obaseki. He was a commissioner in that state and is a staunch member of the People's Democratic Party, the PDP. Honorable Obedi Ifaluyi Isibo. It's a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you so much, Oye. I'm happy to be here.
My delight. So let's start from the basics. I've heard members of your party say, well, the former governor did a lot of work in those states. And then that has become basis for back and forth between your party and the ruling of APC in the state. So by what metrics do we determine what Governor Obaseki had done in the state?
Well, thank you. Thank you again for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and a golden opportunity to engage Nigerians and indeed the Edo people, letting them know what they already know, right, and also announcing and appreciating and also amplifying the gains Edo has made in the last, let me say, a decade. You know, Edo got to a point where we became the cynosure of all eyes. Everybody wanted to know what is going on in Edo State. How are you guys able to achieve what you're achieving? With the meager resources allocated to you by the federal government, with the little money you get from IGRs, have you been able to generate so much and do so much in such a short time? Edo State was the only state in Nigeria that in 4 years were able to have 2 modular refineries, 2 ethanol plants. That was an amazing record set by the ingenuity of Godwin Obaseki. Edo State was the only state who was able to grow her GDP from 2 trillion naira in 2016 to about 7 trillion naira in 2024. Edo State tripled her taxpayers count from 131,000 to over 372,000 in the space of 8 years. So you could see that the government of Godwin Obaseki had a plan, they had a vision, they had a dream, they wrote it down. He put together sound minds on how to articulate this dream and, you know, create this dream. And so Edo, you know, made so much progress that we had other states, other subnationals come to find out what we're doing. We're the very first state to go paperless in West Africa. We got to the point where all government correspondence, mail, memos, were all happening on our ERP platform. As commissioner, I never had to sign on any paper document or had to write any memo. I had a smartphone and I could receive an alert on my phone whenever I got a mail or a memo from the governor or from my colleagues. And I had 48 hours to respond or I get a query. And that was what it was in the entire public and civil service. There was efficiency, there was effectiveness, and there was a reduction, you know, of corruption. But sadly, in such a short time, in 100 days, Edo has slipped backwards in very resplendent measures. And it's baffling to the people. How come you're not able to institute, you know, or create a leadership that also has the kind of vision that Governor Obaseki had? Government, they say, is a continuum, and one would have expected that since Edo was on a trajectory of progress, a government that would succeed that government would look at the book to say, okay, these are the things that they were doing that was right. Let us continue these things. Let us continue on that path of prosperity for the sake of the people. But sadly, many watchers and many other people believe that INEC colluded, with the police and the APC to select a leadership that they now have in Edo State, and the people have no confidence in that leadership.
Incidentally, we can't go into all that.
Yes, because, yes. No, I wasn't going to go into the details of it, but this is what you hear on the mouths of other people. They don't have confidence that Monopoly is the governor. And this is the reason is because in a very short time, we're saying corruption come back in its full splendor in government.
But the government is not complaining that money is missing.
No, the same week Governor Pewolo was inaugurated, we were told, according to the records, over 5 billion naira was given to one of his brothers to purchase vehicles for government. This money was not appropriated for by the House of Assembly. This money was not budgeted for. Nobody bidded for this contract. There was no procurement process. Is that not an impeachable offense? A few weeks after that, another 7.8 billion was given to someone else to buy Hiluxes for state governments without going through due process. There was no state tenders board to approve this contract. We're seeing high level insecurity. Yesterday evening, there was a large hue and cry in Ubiaja. Kidnappers have invaded the community, stealing people from their homes, and it appears that there's no government to take care of these people. A few days ago, the Onoji of Udo was also kidnapped. We're seeing high rate of insecurity bounce back to the state, and we're wondering, Edo State government before now, we had a command and control center, a sophisticated infrastructure that helped us to watch basically the entire state to make sure that these cases of kidnappings, are stemmed. We had an emergency control number, 739-112, so that any Edo person could call that number any time of the day when in distress, and you receive help. We had ambulances stationed at different parts of the state to help to salvage these issues. But suddenly, all of those things have gone down the drain. Can I shock you? Edo has gone back to using paper. While I was in government, the government of Rwanda came to Edo State to find out how have you become paperless. This is novel, on the African continent, and we're able to teach them how we did it using technology. Edo has gone back to paper. If you go to the average civil servant's desk today, you will see a pile of files. People can no longer be effective. People can no longer be efficient. We're able to accommodate our friends who are living with disabilities, so that even if you were blind as a civil servant, you could still be productive using technology. But now these people cannot function because now we've gone back to paper. We have completely destroyed all the technological advancement Edo has made, and these guys have encouraged corruption. Now files can get missing. Now people can say, if you don't give me money, I won't push your files. We had gone past that level of backwardness before in Edo, and sadly, we're having to deal with all these issues again, and it's mind-boggling. The people are wondering, it's been 100 days, just 100 days, and you've destroyed us this much. Can we really continue like this? I mean, the issues that bother the Edo people today are of gargantuan measures. Now we're saying hooligans, touts, and never-do-wells come back into our streets. This was something that we had done away with before. The government had put in place technology to help to collect revenues from our market women, from our bus drivers. We had appreciated the use of technology to improve society, but now they're bringing back these guys back to the streets. Now they're going with cutlasses and daggers and knives into our marketplaces to harass our mothers and our sisters, to beat up drivers, and the people are wondering, where are civilized people? How can it be that a, in quote, constitutional government would employ a third party to help to enforce the collection of revenues? That is illegal. That is unconstitutional. And it is so sad that in every facet of the Edo economy, every facet of the Edo life, we're having to make huge losses. Golden Abbasigi was able to attract $2.5 billion worth of local and foreign investment in the space of 6 years. Now investors are leaving. They have no confidence in the leadership. The man who appears to be governor has no idea what he's doing. The people are in quandary as to where are we. We're having multiple signatures of one governor. All over social media, there were documents of certificate of occupancies allegedly signed by someone who was the governor. And the signatures do not correspond. And so we're wondering, is somebody impersonating the governor? Or is the governor unable to even sign 2 documents with the same signature? People are trying to wonder, what is the cognitive ability of those that lead Edo State today?
I need to push this a bit further. I mean, you just, in summary, presented what the immediate past governor had achieved while in office, right? There are those who say that the governor was more elitist in his thinking. They say, yes, whatever he achieved in office was systematic, was strategic. However, it didn't cascade down to the everyday Edo man and Edo woman. What would be your reaction to that?
That makes absolutely no sense. Edo people were saying their taxes being used for the promotion and the elevation of society. That is why we could increase our tax nets. Those who were avoiding and evading taxes could now see that when we pay these monies, it goes directly to government and not to somebody else. So they had confidence in the system. They were paying their taxes using technology. Is that elitist? Yes. Does that solve the problems of increase in tax revenues? Yes. Number 2, Edo civil servants were the highest paid public civil servants anywhere in Nigeria for 8 years. Is that elitist too? Is that helping to put more money in the pockets of people? Is that building confidence in the civil service? The civil service is the engine room of government. And if civil servants are cared for, if they feel included in the governance of the society, then they are more efficient and more effective. How one would say that is elitist? That bothers me. Edo State became the highest producer of oil palm in Nigeria in the space of 4 years. We had an ESOP program, where we put aside 10,000 hectares of farmlands for the cultivation, and production of oil palm. That is why the 2 companies doing the best at the Nigerian Stock Exchange, Presco and Okomu, they're from Edo State. We built 2, with the help of investors, 2 ethanol plants, supplying, making it easy for our cassava farmers to not have an avenue to sell their produce, such that we need 50 trucks of cassava daily, and our farmers can't even meet the demand. So we're having people now go back to farming, to engage in mechanized farming to make more money. Farmers have become multi-millionaires in Edo State. Is that elitist too? We had a free bus transportation for almost over a year, where people who had difficulties in moving around because of the increase in the cost of gas, fuel in this case, where the government didn't only subsidize it, but it made public transportation free of charge for the Edo people. Is that also elitist? How is it then that in such a short time, the people can see the hopes and the dreams and the celebration of the average Edo nation or average Edo man slip so fast into the gutter, where people are making mockery of us all over the country? People are making merchandise of Edo people, where your governor, they tell me, couldn't even read his own budget figures that he prepared. How can it be that we have such a system? How can it be that government spends money outside of the budgetary allocation of the state and everybody is quiet? How can it be that we're making mockery of our people? We're now bringing touts and hooligans to now be enforcing collection of revenues from our market women and from small businesses? How can it be that Edo State suddenly, people look at us and they think that's, what has happened to you guys? I was in the bank a few days ago, and as I filled the withdrawal slip, a lady asked me, are you from Edo State? I said, yes, I am. She shook her head and she tapped me on the shoulder. She said, we're praying for you. What does that tell you? People knew where Edo was going. We were receiving awards back to back, in the last couple of years. But suddenly, nobody's making reference to Edo State again, except when it has to do with, some form of illiteracy in government.
All right, we're going to take a quick break now, everyone. It's getting a bit more interesting this morning with regards to this conversation. But then there's the big elephant in the room, which is the centrality of this discussion that focuses on this indictment by a panel set up by the state's government under Senator Monday Okpebholo, the executive governor of the state. What exactly are the talking points in this report? We'll find out on the flip side of this break. I'm very sure that you are not ignorant of this report I alluded to just a while ago. What was your first instinct telling you the first time you heard about our report and what the panel has now told the Edo people?
Well, I will start by saying that there are 3 tiers of government. The federal, state and local governments. And according to the constitution, they are all, to that extent, independent and have a high level of autonomy. So, when the governor came in and he started to dabble into local government administration, people were worried that the Supreme Court has come out to tell the world that local governments are autonomous, and so nobody, apart from those who are elected to serve as councillors, has the imprimatur of the constitution of the people to pry into the eyes of the financials of the local government administration. And so we try to educate the governor to let him know that this is an independent arm of government. You do not have any business trying to find out what they're doing with their monies or what they're doing or what goes on with their financials. The constitution doesn't give you that authority. So when I saw the reports of how they've put aside some figures, in this government they don't understand, figures confuse them. So some people were saying it is 97 billion, some said 96, so I wondering which is which. And I found it interesting. Do you know what they're trying to do? They're trying to take our attention from the brazen theft, from the squandermania, from the fiscal rascality, from the financial irresponsibility that is going on in Edo State just now. And they're trying to get their attention on Godwin Obaseki. And when we were leaving government, we had a transition report that told the Edo people, this is exactly where we are, this is what our assets are, this is what the liabilities are. We left assets over 970 billion naira to the succeeding government.
Funds and fiscal.
Total assets, right. We left a debt of about 400 billion. We had 30 billion naira in the treasury account of the state. Etsopadek had 16 billion naira. The EIRS had about 2 billion naira. The Ministry of Physical Planning had about 1.8 billion naira. The week we left office, Edo State government received $2.5 million from the World Bank for the Edo Best program. There was another grant of about $5.7 million in grants that the Edo State government received from the World Bank. These are monies that have been received by the Edo State government. And all of these, and most of them, are in our transition report. This is what we're leaving to you. The people have been asking them.
Beyond the transition report,
yes.
I need to ask, were these monies accessible right from that point when you were transitioning?
100%. When a government leaves, the government that succeeds that government has 100% authority over the financials. And so the people are asking you, you're telling us about the debts. What about the assets that were left for you? What about the monies that were left for you? And we've seen that in 100 days, 30 billion naira, 16 billion here, 2 billion there, they have found a way to transport those monies out of government purses, to private pockets. Now, Edo State has just about 12 billion naira altogether. So we're asking, where's the balance? We left to you about 50 billion naira. Now you have 12. What is going on? So because the people are trying to find out from the government, because the government owes the people financial accountability.
Right.
Because government, is established by the imprimatur of the people. So you owe the people an explanation. So the other people are asking the government, where is this money? And so because they can't provide answers to these questions, they're talking about Godwin Obaseki. Meanwhile, Godwin Obaseki did what no other government really did before him. He gave you a total breakdown of all that he's leaving behind. These are contracts that are ongoing. Many of them we have paid for. So we're only, letting you know this is where we are, so we couldn't continue them. And so we're having, different issues, different panels of inquiry, asset verification committee. It's all a lot of noise, trying to cover up the mess that is going on. I just told you that over, 11 billion naira has been given to the relations of the governor to purchase vehicles. Are we not going to ask them, on what premise were this money given? Were this money budgeted for in 2024 or even 2025? Was there a state tenders board that approved these contracts? Was there a procurement process? So when you have, the people, interrogate the government, and the government is running away from the answers and trying to, point fingers at somebody else, then you leave yourself, exposed, because the people now know what you're trying to hide. So I find no credence in the report that they have made if they are alleging that Governor Obaseki or anybody else has engaged in financial misappropriation. It is not your job. There's the EFCC. There's the ICPC. He doesn't have to. That's what the average man will call Obasabi. The EFCC knows what to do. You don't have to petition anybody. They know they have a constitutional assignment to check financial crimes. Let them do their job. Focus on the reason why you were elected.
You don't think somebody has to draw the attention of the EFCC to this?
I mean, at the beginning of his tenure, they had sent Governor Obaseki, letters, so to say, that he's under the EFCC watch. And the man said, I have nothing to hide.
The state government?
No, we were told that the EFCC was saying that Obaseki was under their watch. And the man said, I have nothing to hide. I have over 20 million archive documents, records to show all that we did as a government. So if you want to find out anything, go check the books. And to make it beautiful, we have become technologically savvy. You could check all this things, Google it, and you find out the information. We put all these things out there to be transparent to the people. And Governor Obaseki won several awards as being one of the most transparent governors Edo has ever had. And that's because we felt that if we are to appropriate the resources of the people for their benefits, they should know what is being spent and what is not being spent. So the idea of, these guys who are there temporarily, because the other people believe that they're there very, very temporarily, the idea of them having to, put up all forms of committees, this and it's all noise. What the other people want is a roadmap. It's been 100 days. There is no clear-cut direction. We don't know what the plan is in agriculture. We don't know what the plan is in education. We don't know what the plan is in infrastructure. We don't know what the plan is in health. I mean, what the people expect is that in 100 days there should be policy direction. We should know that, okay, this is what Okpebholo, this is how he thinks. This is the quality of his thoughts, and he wants to infuse those thoughts into the everyday life of the Edo people. And okay, in 2 years' time, we should have this. In 4 years' time, we should have this. These people, they have no idea what governance is all about. They came mistakenly through the back door, and the people are sure that this is not just a temporary government, but this is a government that has started to fail right from the beginning, and it's very shameful, especially because you took over from a very celebrated administration. You took over from a government that was clear on her plans and purpose. You took over from a government that was celebrated by other national governments who were coming in to borrow. I mean, we visited the Concert Technopolis in Kenya as a government, and when we told them what we had done, Edo State is a sub-national. We visited Concert Technopolis, which is owned by the Kenyan national government. And when we were comparing books, we had even surpassed them in technology. And they were wild. You mean a state in Nigeria has all of this? And we're planning to come to visit, to come to learn what we've done. We had a tier 3 data center. We are the only state in Africa to have such a facility. We built, which they've destroyed now, over 3,000 kilometers of fiber optic cables connecting all local government councils in the state. So in every state there was internet connectivity. In every local government there was internet connectivity. Tell me wherever that's happened in Nigeria. Edo State we had elevated governance to the point where people were wondering. I mean, we increased IGR from a partly 2 billion naira to almost 7 billion naira. And this was done by taking cutlasses and whips and daggers to the marketplaces. We only told the people, this is what your money can do. So do what is right, stop evading or avoiding taxes, pay your taxes using technology, it gets to the state's purse, and we'll deploy the resources for the people. But that's not what we're saying now. And to further buttress this argument, our governor is unable to express himself before the people. We're told that Adams Oshiomhole is the one who's going to speak in his stead.
100 days in office?
In commemoration of his 100 days in office.
Will he speak in his stead, or is going to be one of the, as it were, key speakers at the event?
Well, that's not what we're told. Yesterday there was a flyer that was published by the state. He was going to be on ITV. And you see, my dear brother, it's very painful. Most of us have submitted ourselves to some form of enlightenment, some form of education, some form of exposure. It is expected that the governor of a state, the one who superintends over the affairs of the state, should be able to articulate his thoughts and engage with the people that he leads. Is it not a shame where we have a deputy governor, where we have commissioner for information, where we have a special advisor on media, where we have a chief press secretary? These are people who should be able to speak on behalf of the government.
Right.
We're having to have a former governor who is unable to understand that he has left power over 8 years ago, who still wants to impose himself, and belittle the governor. That is exactly what Adam Shimon is doing. You're belittling the people, belittling the government. That's an embarrassment of gigantic proportions. And every Edo person should be ashamed of it. He's making mockery of us. We're not saying you can't express your views as a member of the society. We're not saying you can't express your views as a serving senator. But should you be the one to speak on behalf of government on what government has done in 100 days, where there's a retinue of it who should do that? That's an embarrassment.
Let's wrap this up real quick. As it stands today, for whatever it's worth, your party in the state is left to play the opposition. Now, going to the election last year, September, we saw how that your party, the PDP in the state, had been depleted. For example, pivotal figures, I should say, like Chief Dan Osiobi. People say, for want of better words, were sitting on the fence. But we did know at that point for a fact that they were not with your candidates, Dr. Asuelu Ighodalo. Now, like we said earlier, we're not going into the election, aftermath of the election. But can we run away from the fact that your party in that state is more like a house divided against itself right now?
No, I will use those words because you see, politics is evolving, and Edo State is teaching the world how to play politics. You don't have to be a member of the PDP to support the PDP candidate. We've seen developed democracies do this too. There were former presidents who were Republicans who didn't support Donald Trump, and they were vocal about it. So that Chief Dan Obi didn't support Asuelu Ighodalo, that was exclusively his choice. But most of his supporters did, and that is why Asuelu Ighodalo won the highest number of lawful votes at the elections.
Given what the PDP, your party, believes about
what the Edo people generally believe.
So we leave that to the courts to decide.
Yes, but you see, while the matter is in courts, the people have a right to express themselves too.
Right.
Elections are a reflection of the decisions of the people. So while the courts have a role to play, the people also have their roles to play. So the PDP is not divided. We are solid. You see, what we tried to do was to do some weeding, do some pruning. There were some people that were not going to help us move forward and make progress. There were some people that were bent on, their anger with the governor because he didn't give me this, he didn't give me that, so I'm not going to support his candidate. And so the people said it's not about what he's giving to you, but what he's giving to the people. So those who sat on the fence, like you said, or those who openly supported, the opposition, the APC, there's no grudge against them. It's their right to do what they want to do. But at the end of the day, did the Edo people, did they have confidence in Asuelu Ighodalo? Were they able to see through him and understand the clarity of his vision? Were they able to see through him and understand the purpose he was bringing into government? Did he make his plan clear to the people? And for that purpose, did they give him the votes? The answer is yes. So the PDP is strong. And we're not just doing or playing opposition. The Edo people are the ones now holding this government to account. The Edo people are the ones really in the opposition, because they are saying that this is not a reflection of our wishes. So we must make sure that while this government serves as temporarily as it will be, we'll make sure they give accounts of their stewardship. And that's what the people are doing. And the PDP is just, like a support system for the people of Edo State.
It's more like an icing on the cake, as they say, right? At the twilight of his first term in office, Governor Godwin Obaseki, who at the point was embattled, because he already knew there was no slim chance the APC would give him that ticket to run for a second term in office, eventually jumped into the PDP and he was welcomed. But I remember very clearly that at that point in time, when he was at the PDP Secretariat to formally obtain his membership card, he did say with emphasis that he had read the constitution of the PDP, and the constitution detailed very clearly that he would be the leader of the party going forward on account of his position as the governor, as he then was. I remember also clearly that the chairman of the party in the States, Dr. Anthony Azegbemi, would nod again and again in support of that position. But just maybe a year or two down the line, it will appear that there was conflict on that level. When you look over your shoulder today, do you think there were people who really were not comfortable within the party with the governor being the leader of the party in the state?
Well, I'm going to be as frank as I can. Governor Obaseki was not my best friend in his first tenure, because then he was in the APC, I was in the PDP, and I did what a politician would do. I criticized his government. Places where I saw that they were failing or they were not doing as should be, I spoke about it. So I was very critical of his government. I was not also very excited when he joined the PDP.
Why was that?
Because I felt that, well, you're just leaving the APC, a party that many of us, many other people do not celebrate, and you're joining the PDP. And we already had, a formula already. And so you're coming to upset that formula. But eventually when he came...
Part of that formula was you already had people like William
yes,
who were interested.
Yes,
like Riceman.
Yes, we already had a structured leadership because we didn't have a governor. But now that the governor was going to come in, that is the constitution. He now automatically becomes the leader.
Right.
And when we now have a new leader, every other leadership must submit themselves.
Is that the constitution, let's be clear, or is it a necessity that political parties and their leaders are created?
Well, I don't know the provisions of the PDP constitution to that extent, but the norm, the tradition of the PDP, and indeed of every political party, is that when you have a governor in your state,
by default it becomes...
Yes, by default it becomes the leader. If he's a leader of the state, then he should be the leader of the political platform on which he assumed power. So people were not very convenient with the style of leadership of Godwin Obaseki because he was coming with a different mindset. And that is why I'm encouraging more people from the private sector to get involved in politics. Let us clean up this system, because politicians have a way of doing their things. The average, regular, professional politicians, where the people's patrimony, they see it as, part of it should be shared, to patronize people. But Godwin said, no, let us do first of all what we were elected to do, serve the people, and so you can become productive in that same venture of serving the people. But many of them didn't share his views. And I don't know the intricacies of what actually happened, the personal beefs, if you like, that they had, but the bottom line was that some people had to step aside for real leadership in the PDP to emerge under Godwin Obaseki, and he handled his politics the way he thought he knew best to. That may not have sat well with some people, but that again, that's fine. There has been no leader who has ruled guiltlessly. So there were some things that may have been done better, but that we may not have done the way we should have done as a government. But again, politics is about using the people's power to enrich the people, to deploy their resources to their benefits. That is the ultimate purpose of government. That is the ultimate purpose of politics. And so, if a government is doing that, every other thing is secondary.
All right, great. This is a fine place to leave this conversation, at least for today, because this will be more like a developing story, as we say in journalism. I've been speaking with Honorable Obedi Ifalu Isibo. He's the former commissioner in Edo State under the immediate past government of Godwin Obaseki, and is a staunch member of the People's Democratic Party. Hey, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
We'll take a quick break now. When we return, what is fake and what is authentic with regards to petroleum products? We have those insights and perspectives for you at the turn of this break. Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
A Global Morning aims to deliver newspaper reviews and latest news with experts on key global issues.
and at the same time keeping you well informed about important events, both national and internationals.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range of the latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest.
The president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
Hello and many thanks for Sister Rose here on the program Global Morning. A lot of concerns as Nigerians are now calling on the federal government to conduct fresh tests to confirm the quality of petrol sold in the filling stations across the country. This came amid allegations from a viral video that the petrol from the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited does not last long in fuel tanks. This is even as the petroleum product retailer owners of Nigeria said that the fuel from NNPC is one of the quality standard. And our NNPC have denied that claim, says that it sells the substandard petrol with a high burn rate. In a statement through the spokesperson, he said it was reacting to the viral video that the petrol does not last longer. A lot of reactions surrounding that situation. A content creator came out with that video and sparked a whole lot of concern. Is it Dangote Refinery? Is it the NNPC? Which one is real? Which one is fake? Which one is substandard? Joining us this morning is Truly Labode, oil and gas consultant. Is my guest this morning to review all of this development. Thanks so much for being part of the program this morning.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yes. The last time we were here, we were talking about the refineries, particular refineries, Warri refineries. But what has really sparked controversy of recent has been the standard of our product, the petrol product. Tell us, does it look that NNPC product is less of standard?
Okay, thank you, and thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to be here. So, at the root of all of this is a lot of ignorance. So, let me first start with the things that are known, because in science, you usually go from known to unknown. When they wanted to get the cure to smallpox or to cure malaria, they looked at the symptoms and then they moved from what was known in order to get a solution to. In the press release that was issued, what NNPC said, which somehow has not been captured, but it's on the press release and it's everywhere, is that the particular fuel that is distributed in Lagos, where the content creator did the experiment, is gotten from Dangote Refinery. Because NNPC actually buys from Dangote as well as imports. So in the particular pace that he was referring to, that fuel came from Dangote Refinery. So that's at the baseline. The second part of it is science. Now, for those who are not science, I need to go from a bit of the psychology of science to the root of science itself. One thing that unites all science fields, whether it is the biological sciences or the natural sciences, physics, chemistry, and all that, is what you call the repeatable process. In other words, things are science because they give the exact same results if they follow the same conditions. So a simple example is that water boils at 100 degrees centigrade at standard temperature and pressure. That is science. What that means is that if you carry water to Alaska or to Cape Town or to Tokyo or even to my village, as long as it is under standard temperature and pressure and you put a condition that heats it to 100 degrees, water must boil. So if it does not boil, then it is not water. Something else is it. Now, for crude oil, there are a number of petroleum products that are there. There are some gases, there is petrol, there is diesel and all that. There is a chemical composition that makes up petrol as different from kerosene. Once it is petrol and you subject it to the same chemical reactions, it must give you the same results. There may be a little differences in terms of maybe the content of it, like the petrol that they use in the UK, they have a significant amount of ethanol in it. That one makes it to, because it's not a mixture, so the chemical composition is totally different. So if the refinery, because the refinery is agnostic, it is a machine, if the refinery produces petrol and is certified to be petrol, the discrepancies that they showed in that experiment cannot be true. So it is only possible if it is elements of different chemical composition. And that is why it would have been nice if it was a proper experiment. So if it was a proper experiment, there would have been the proper video which showed how they took it from the pump and all that, rather than cutting it into a few seconds. Because what has been eliminated is a number of hours and anything can happen there. So and that is where I say that there is a scientific, in terms of the science of it. Let's forget about blending. In terms of science, once you put a component of crude oil that forms within the same compound, within the same chemical reaction, you are supposed to get the same results. So on those two bases, though that thing can be faulted. On the first basis of the fact that the particular fuel that he did the experiment with is actually Dangote's fuel, and on the second basis that it faults the foundations of the thermodynamical laws of fluids and fluid mechanics.
Because I feel the content creator went on with that due to the speculation. Many persons were already speculating about the standard of that, even when the regulators are silenced. Now, you come to Abuja, the MRS filling stations are now having more queues, compared to NNPC. So if you said, look, in Lagos, what we have is the Dangote refineries, products from the Dangote refinery. How about the situations here in Abuja? Do you feel that there is a widespread of the information that probably may be causing that panic?
So what you are talking about is a totally different issue, in the sense that if people, first of all, like I said, the very first thing I said is that there's a lot of ignorance. Just like when Ebola came.
But tell me that.
Hold on. I just explained something. I just spent some minutes explaining, except you did not get it. When Ebola came into the place, there was a rumor that was going around that if you use salt to bath, it will cure you of Ebola. And if you drink salt, some people almost had liver failure from drinking salt. Ignorance is ignorance. You get the fact that people are rushing to MRS does not mean they are doing it out of knowledge.
Are they experiencing it? Because for once,
I have already explained to you that it is scientifically impossible.
From the experience,
they can say they experience anything. It's like some people say, some people use toothpaste.
So majority can be wrong.
Majority have always been wrong, practice.
From the experience of
majority, I am saying that majority cannot nullify science. But simply because we are plenty does not mean science is wrong. Majority cannot nullify science. Science is science.
But why do we have these products? Is it not to better lives of the people?
And I'm saying that if they claim what they are claiming, there is a lot of lies in between. For example, your body has a liver. Will you say because in my own hometown we don't have livers, does that mean it is true? Because there is a way the human body is created. That is science. And I'm saying that when you have a chemical composition that has between that C4 and C7, I mean C8 or C10, whatever, that range, that falls within petrol, they must behave according to the scientific laws of petrol. It does not matter if 1 million people say that it is not. That is not enough to invalidate science. This is not art. It's art that has 1,000 answers to a particular problem. In science, there's just one answer. And that one answer has a process. That is the difference.
All right, show me. The purpose we are having this convention is for Nigerians to understand because at the end of the day, all of the sciences is to reflect on the life of every Nigerian who is buying the product. Because if we take, for instance, the concern, and how can they probably justify this? Yes, you may have said many or the numbers of persons saying that this is the right thing may be totally wrong. But how do we put to rest this tension or these speculations? How do they prove? I mean, what is the part of the regulators? How do they come out to clarify all of this so that all of these tensions can be put to rest?
In the first place, how did you even get the product itself from crude oil? It went through a scientific process.
I agree.
It is not people's opinion. It's not like people got their opinions together and they started debating, and in the process of debating, crude oil just transformed into petrol. No, it went through a scientific process. And this scientific process is more than 100 years old. They have been doing these things for over a century. It is not suddenly going to become, it's not something going to become faulty in year 2025. So there is something about human nature that we in Nigeria miss totally. There is a personal responsibility not to be ignorant. It is not the responsibility of the state. And one example of that is ignorance of the law. If you run foul of a law, you cannot plead ignorance in court. Ignorance of the law excuses no man. Now, if as a person you are doing a business and you run into the hands of fraudulent people out of ignorance, it is still your responsibility. If people are posting things on social media and we don't have the capacity personally to verify and vet, and we don't have a process to verify and vet, if you fall victim of the ignorance being perpetrated, it is a personal responsibility. The idea that people should leave their normal basic job that is supposed to bring progress to society and be attending to every busybody, every paid every paid person that is trying to cause commotion, is leading to chaos. Because if they have to be responding to every rumor, they will not have a job. And let me tell you, in best practice of public relations, organizations don't respond to rumors. There are a lot of rumors in the air that there are certain drinks that are related to 666 and all that, and people should not drink it. Have you ever seen those companies respond? There is rumors in the atmosphere that Microsoft is giving certain gifts when they have no ideas to eat. Did you see them respond? Real, solid, stable, progressive organizations that know what they do, they don't respond to every rumor. It is in Nigeria that people believe that if somebody starts a rumor and you don't drop all you are doing to come and defend the rumor, that it is right. It's just Nigerians that say that. It has absolutely no bearing with reality. And like I said, if you believe falsehood instead of the truth, the responsibility is on you. It is, and freedom of speech means anybody can say anything. But for you to absorb and not be able to decipher between facts and truth, it's your responsibility. And that's it. So if people out of ignorance choose a particular line that is detriment to themselves, it is for them to learn along the line. And that is life. So that is why it is important. In fact, it is incumbent upon them. This is what I'm talking about is secondary school chemistry. Is secondary school chemistry. Anybody that has passed chemistry in secondary school should be able to understand what I'm saying. So it is not, I'm not talking about highfalutin technology and all that. It's just basic fundamental science.
All right. Do you think the NNPC is still importing fuel into the country?
They are.
Or with our refineries? Or Dangote refineries?
So this, we've gone through all this in the past. They say for the purpose of energy security, they must. And secondly, Dangote refinery and the current refineries, even at maximum production, cannot satisfy national needs.
Still have to import?
Yes. I mean, it's not for me to say. You can call them. I mean, I'm not a spokesperson for NNPC. But there's a reason why. So it is the thing. There's all this talk about this should not be, that should not be, but people also don't understand the fundamentals. One of the responsibilities of the regulator and the national carrier is to ensure that there is energy security. Energy security is based on two prongs: energy availability and energy affordability. Dangote cannot meet that, even in full production, and it is not yet at full production, even at maximum production.
It's lesser than an NPC.
That is not energy security. That is, we are talking about availability. When are they sell?
Now.
They are both affordable. The differences they are talking about is less than 15 naira.
But the NNPC ought to probably be lesser than that.
On what basis?
As government
So government entity should not cover its costs. People, they are business entities. You understand? People sell when they look. So the purposes of competition is so that the people are not cheated, whether by private, whether by government. There is nothing that says government must not make profit. There is nothing that says government should not cover its cost. So they probably have 100 times more staff than Dangote has. They probably have a lot more things. So they have to look at their own cost of production, and on the basis of that, come out. And because it's a free market, everybody can come out with whatever they want to come out with, and then they compete.
So do you feel this is sustainable, the free market principle?
If you don't, you want, the only other alternative is communism. The world has started communism. If you don't want democracy, because at the bedrock of democracy is the free market. So if you don't want that, then you move to communism. That's the only alternative.
So what if, I mean, situation wakes up that the price is skyrocketed to the point where Nigerians cannot be able to afford?
That is the reality we have to face. And that is part of the reason why we shouldn't act in ignorance. Because when we start to push a narrative, because we have an ulterior interest, those are the kind of things that can happen. And that is why truth has no replica. Whether you agree with the truth or not, it always has a way of having consequences. That's why a lot of people and a lot of groups who go along with falsehood over time usually ends up with a lot of failure. It is in our interest not to be deceived by narratives, but to decipher and discern what is the truth and hold on to that.
And what's the truth?
I just explained a few things, because once you said what's the truth, in truth with respect to what? I said that with respect to that content creator, it's precisely that. The guy has no fault. He will tell you he's making a movie. He has absolutely no fault. He never said that what he's telling you is the truth. He is not on oath to tell you the truth. He's not. It could as well be drama. He has no responsibility to anybody to say the truth. What he is saying is that he could have been acting a movie. That people take it hook, line, and sinker is their responsibility. There are people, especially young children when they're growing up, and those who are not familiar, who believe that when they shoot somebody in the movie, the person actually dies. Is it the responsibility of the movie maker to say that no, the person doesn't actually die, that we are acting? It's not his responsibility.
How about public perception? Because in the center of all of this is about how every Nigerian feel, proud to local refineries operation, like the Dangote refinery. Many persons were actually looking at how do we get to the point where our refineries are working, where the products can, be affordable, accessible, and all of that. So, but in a way, the confidence of Nigerians have dropped drastically, owing to the fact that the prices are still as high as it is now. The energy is not even affordable again, and all of that. So, the concern and the fears of many Nigerians is to what are the future of our energy situation in Nigeria?
So, I was just talking about truth, and one of the problems that gave people wrong expectations is the way the Dangote refinery was reported. So the Dangote refinery, when they were coming on board, was reported as that they were going to drop prices. I remember coming on air on one TV station, that's about 3 years ago now, during the heat. They were not yet even global, and I said that from all the parameters that determine the price of the finished product, there is no indication that Dangote refinery, when it comes on board, will have any significant drop. And the interviewer got angry on live TV. And I said, look, you called me as an analyst. I will tell you what I understand to be facts as I know it on the industry. But that is where we are today. The reason why people have that expectation was just because it was being reported. And it was being reported on ignorance. The Dangote refinery never at any point said that they were going to reduce prices. What they said is that they were going to produce, and that they were going to produce locally, and they were going to eliminate the price of transportation via importation. So those were the promises. So it is left for people who are reporting to actually know the truth, analyze the truth, look at the issues, compare the parameters for determining the prices, and see the amount that will be eliminated. But more importantly, what we fail to realize is that the single biggest determinant of the finished product is the exchange rate to the dollar. The exchange rate of the naira to the dollar is not local refining, because the crude oil as a commodity will be bought at international pricing, whether it is bought in naira or dollar. So for example, if you are selling cocoa, it's a commodity. If you are selling rubber, those are commodities. What are the characteristics of commodities? They are fungible. Their prices are uniform. That's why you have crude oil prices being uniform. So that crude oil price is being priced in USD. So irrespective of how they buy it, as long as the naira to the dollar keeps fluctuating, that will be reflecting on that. And so people must understand the part of this pricing that is related to the energy industry and the part of it that is outside the influence, outside the circle of influence of the energy industry, so that you don't pour blames on the wrong place out of ignorance. And if people need that price to drastically come down, and it can, it is all going to reflect, it's all going to be based on the naira exchange to the dollar. So, and I usually give this example. In 2005, I took a trip to Gothenburg in Sweden. That's the headquarters of Volvo, the Volvo car and all that. That trip cost about 190,000 naira. That same trip last year cost a little over 2 million naira. But guess what? At that time, it was about $1,300. Last year, it was still about $1,300. The difference was the exchange rate to the naira. So if I buy crude oil at $70 in 2005, there is what it will cost me at the pump. I'll buy it at the same $70 in 2025, and the difference will be wide. That is not an industry issue. That's an issue of national economics. So we should separate something that has a responsibility on the industry from something that has a responsibility outside the industry. No refinery is going to be able to work on that exchange rate. Nobody can do that. So when they keep talking about the price will drastically come down, the price with this, the price with that, on what basis? And the fact that people are running to town on that ignorance, and that is not going to turn it to knowledge. It's not going to turn it to the truth. No. So that's where people have a responsibility to know the truth about these things, rather than holding on to a narrative because it suits them and riding into town with lies.
So you now get to the conclude that removing subsidy and floating the naira, was not for the better of this country.
I'm not an economist. It's not my area, so I don't know. No, I'm telling you.
I agree.
Yes.
If we had removed subsidy and probably didn't float the naira,
let me tell you where I differ, because I have certain expertise. I understand it. Nigerians think generally that logic is the same thing as knowledge. It is not. And let me give you an example. The same water, most liquids in the world, virtually all liquids, in fact not all, except water, when they become solid, they reduce in size. Except the case of water. And that's why when you put water in a freezer, in a glass bottle, it breaks it, because it expands. It's called the anomalous expansion of water. Now, if you have been dealing with liquids, you're involved in fluid mechanics and all that, you know that as a matter of knowledge. But if you are now discussing that with lay people, and you are telling them that this liquid is going to expand instead of solid, it's going to expand when it solidifies, what are you telling us? All liquids contract now. You think we don't have sense and all that. So it's an exception to the law. There are things that are exception to logic among those that are knowledgeable. So you cannot be using logic to question the decision and the contribution of experts. That's the point I'm trying to make. So when it comes to floating of the naira, managing the economy, the dynamics of all those kind of things, I'm not an expert in it. So I have to acknowledge my own limitation.
All right. And now let's get to how all of this can work, because there are those that are also blaming issues of pipeline network and the issues of the port. If government have a way to play around this in a better bringing down the price, does it work that way?
I said something. I said we owe it to ourselves to determine, to know the factors that determine the price.
Aside the exchange rate.
Exchange rate is a factor. So you can't say outside the exchange rate. Exchange rate is a factor. So when you look at the factors, so I mean, one of the things you can't do really is speak to the regulators, speak to the refinery themselves, and then NNPC, Dangote Refinery, that how do you arrive at your final price? Then you put all of them side by side and look at the factors and allow people to see, because that's what they do abroad. It's a responsibility of journalism. I say, okay, we want to talk to Dangote, please give us the parameters for your pricing. Then you speak to the NNPC and give us the parameters for your price. And if you find out maybe NNPC, this thing should not be this high now, we compare it another, look at the cost for Dangote. I mean, you do all those kind of analysis. And there are also the smaller refineries too. You speak to all of them. Then you can know the price. And then people are not guessing. And people are not finger pointing. And you don't have malicious people misleading the public. The truth of the matter is that once it is factual, it is factual. Once it is science, it is repeatable. So if you bring out an analysis supplied by the people who are the players themselves, there will be no need for guessing, and there will be no need, because it's not exactly, yes, it's expert knowledge, but it's not exactly expertise in that sense. It's something that people with basic knowledge of mathematics can actually follow.
All right. Before we begin to wrap up, issues of tankers explosion in Nigeria is becoming very worrisome, claiming the life of many Nigerians. What is your take about all of these incidents? We've seen government trying to regulate the tanks movement and all of that.
Okay, so when it comes to people breaking laws, violating policies and all that, at the root of it, particularly for us, is culture. As long as we keep excusing and accepting and accommodating people who break laws as being smart, we will continue to have all these things. So a law was created for people, not people for the law. So if the people don't follow the law will be there, but it will be useful. The law is like the white lines on the road. The white lines on the road is supposed to give you a guidance on which part of the road you are supposed to drive. But if you have a drunk driver or somebody who is just lawless and he decides to drive in the middle of the road, it is not because the law is not there. And the police and the traffic warden are not on every area of the road. It's not possible. So if people don't obey the laws, and if people around them don't encourage them to obey the laws, you will be having the consequences of breaking those laws. So back to the issue. There are laws, there are regulations for all the tanker drivers. And one of the things that causes it, for example, is when people want to be smart. So you have a tanker that was allocated for diesel, and it's supposed to go for a certain route, and they put a little bit of time to ensure consistency and to ensure that the guy can rest. So the guy chooses not to rest in order to beat time. He decides to speed on the road in order to increase the time. So he has maybe a few hours at disadvantage when he has dropped his product. So what does he go and do? He goes to load another product. But because he doesn't care and because he's ignorant, he will now maybe load petrol instead of diesel. So you have two chemical components of different flash points. That's different points. So if they are not giving you diesel, which has been laced with petrol, it is likely to catch fire or explode because the weight and you are treating it like it's diesel. You may not know that there's petrol there, but the petrol component that is there, because it is petrol, will always ignite at the flash point of petrol. That's usually part of what causes it. And in terms of and who are the people that do all these things? It's just like the people who manufacture fake drugs for their fellow human beings to take inside, knowing that they are setting up, but just because there is a culture that is not holding people accountable to what is right, is what is causing it. So the government can have all the laws. They can build all the prisons. They can set policemen wherever. But if the people don't come together and say this is wrong and should not be encouraged, if we don't have a culture that encourages people to do the right thing, we will always have issues. They say in the corporate world that culture defeats strategy. No matter the strategy of government, if our culture does not speak against these things, it will be defeated.
Well, sound very worrisome right there. I mean, issues before we wrap up of CNG buses, or CNG vehicles, conversion as well, to question the effect of all of this, because some persons are still having feelings of subsidy removal, that government said we will have in CNG conversion, vehicles and all of that, but no effort really measurable to the expectation.
Well, the first thing is that what was the expectation? So because if you are going to be measuring, like you said, measurable to it, there has to be a standard. What was the expectation? I think when this kind of initiative starts, people don't ask the right questions. And because they don't have asked the right questions, they come up with a lot of assumptions. And they turn the assumptions into reality, simply because there are a lot of them that assume. The word assume is an English word which means to hold something as true without any proof. So, CNG, let's say it's a fuel, just like petrol is a fuel. Why is petrol more available than CNG? Petrol, the supply chain for petrol is such that it has been built in Nigeria over maybe 70 years. So there's no local government that doesn't have a petrol station. For CNG to be available like petrol, first of all, it must have a station that is as many as that of petrol. So that as you are driving along the road, they don't have that. And it's going to take them time to have that. The second thing is availability of the product. Do they have as much abundant product available for use the way petrol is available for use? I'm not sure they have that. And they may be working towards that. It's going to take time. So these are just basic things. You don't need a lot of intelligence to know this. You don't even need to be an expert to know this. But because when those announcements were made, people did not ask the right questions. They just said, oh, CNG, our problems are solved. It's not. It doesn't work like that. And the fact that they accepted that in ignorance is not going to change the fact of the matter. And that's why I said it is people's responsibility to discern between what is true and what is false. It's not an external responsibility. If you go into a place, you go into a meeting room, you go into a seminar, you go into a church, you go into anywhere, and what they are saying is not true, and you accept it to be true, it's your responsibility. So no matter what comes from the air, in terms of mass media, no matter what comes on social media, people have an individual, personal responsibility to determine, to decipher, to check what is true. The old book says, listen to everything and hold on to that which is the truth. It's your responsibility.
So where then are the responsibility of the policymakers? Because every policies or intervention initiative is to better the life of the people.
Which is true, but it is, okay, for example, every politician is advocating a policy or something. But it's the responsibility of the people to determine who is saying the truth among them. It is their responsibility. So the politician A says he's going to do this, politician A says B says he's going to do this. And you listen. It's your responsibility to discern who is saying the truth. It's not the responsibility of others to feed you with the truth.
All right. So Labode Oil and Gas consultant, always an excellent conversation having with you. You always have a different view from entire Nigeria. Probably it's because of knowledge.
Well, I don't know. I have a different view. I just speak based on my understanding.
All right. We do hope at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, what matters is how it affects the life of every Nigerian. Yes, a part of knowledge and ignorance may also be playing out, but policymakers should also understand that they hold the responsibility to also effect or brings out initiative that will positively affect the life of every Nigerian.
Totally agree with that.
Thanks so much for joining us on the show this morning, very briefly, and having an insight on that conversation. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Hi, everyone. We'll be going on a very quick break, and once we return, we'll be wrapping up the conversation here on the program this morning. Do stay with us. We'll be right back.
your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
A Global Morning aims to deliver newspaper reviews and latest news with experts on key global issues.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and international.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range of the latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest.
The president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
That Global Television can be watched in Nigeria and all over the world with our app on Google and Play Store. All you need to do is download Global TV Nigeria on your phone and watch all programs on Global Television. What are you waiting for? Start downloading and stay connected to Global Television.
Social, economic, cultural, and political conditions are constantly in flux, requiring regular conversations on the many contexts and informed analysis of their dimensions. Now, these discussions are not just about understanding the present, but about shaping the future. Foremost Bayes University is taking this lead through the Bayes University Debates, hosted by Global Television.
Analyzing and debating issues big and small, Bayes University Debates presents a vibrant forum where we invite academics, intellectuals, and prominent personalities to share their diverse views and ideas on topical issues. Your unique perspective is a valuable addition to our rich intellectual community.
Engage in respectful, challenging debates where we try to find common ground, keep our minds open, and seek truth and understanding.
Don't miss the opportunity to join the conversation on Bayes University Debates at 9 p.m. every last Tuesday of the month. Showing on Global Television Channel 365. Start times Channel 276, free to air on Niconsat. You can also download the Global TV app on the App Store and Google Play Store. Be part of the action.
Nigeria is such, it's at such a place now where the conversation never ends because of all of the developments keep popping up every other day. For this morning, for example, it was both national and subnational in terms of the category of conversations that we've had here on the program today. But then, that's all we can get into, quite frankly, because it would be surgeries to do so, especially when you look at the issue from Edo States in particular.
The dramas coming from the new government in place is still getting unfolding, and of course, a lot of expectations, anyways, from owing to the fact that the Commissioner for Justice, Attorney General of the state, was also suspended, pending some investigation. So, what we're expecting, should the new government in place begin to have all of those controversies. But what matters to the people of Edo is about governance, about the deliverables and the expectations among the people who had promised the people of Edo State.
Well, that's what we're leaving these conversations today and the entire program. Just to quickly establish that all of the views of our guests on Global Morning and across all our programs are their opinions. And we are Gmafoibe saying we do not take for granted the time you invest with us here on Global Morning.
Many thanks for staying with us on the show. My name is Edikan Michael. Bye-bye for now.
Welcome to Global Morning.
Death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
If you don't say we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rate as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call the police station, before they even leave, they take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
The struggle, the ASU strike.